And so we can go ahead and get started and let you guys start painting if that works, and actually do the video. Is anyone, because otherwise I'll just have to change the whole format and just send you guys all new links to see if that would work.
This is good.
Okay, all right. So the great thing is we can hear each other. So if you do have a question, feel free to interrupt, but we are gonna do a little trivia. That was part of tonight's excitement, is trivia and painting sort of in between. And so we were thinking of Molly was gonna do a little introduction, and then I was gonna actually bring up a screen of 2 trivia questions, and then we were gonna get right into the session 1 of painting with Natalie.
I would like to say something.
Sure.
If we can't see each other, can you at least introduce us so we know who we're playing with?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So there's Anne Eggerly. Is that correct? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay. And Jane Malgary. Jennifer Powers. And oops, people switch around. Hold on. Emily Switzer. Kim Lentang. Or sorry. Megan Valley and Nancy White.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So Molly, do you want to unmute yourself and I can bring up the screen if that helps?
Sure. I'm ready. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is exciting, and I know there's some kinks to work out, of course, with all these, first-time virtual events. But thank you to Natalie and Leela and all of you for attending. It's really pretty cool to see how we can translate all this stuff online. Certainly no substitute for in-person. And if any of you joined us last year, there were some pretty awesome times that we had in the Lawrence Barn and in the grammar school last year in person. So we're looking forward to that coming back. But in the meantime, this is the best we can do. So thanks for supporting us and joining us. So as those of you who have joined us in the past know, we do just a little history at the beginning, and Leela's sharing her screen with all of us. We've set up a little slideshow to talk very briefly. Won't take away from any time that you have to paint, but just so you know where the history is and how it's relevant to the Old Stone House Museum. So the brief history of Slate in the classroom in Vermont, early American education in the 1830s. So it dates back to Alexander Twilight, who of course is the hero of our story at the Old Stone House, the headmaster of the Orleans County Grammar School. And Alexander Twilight was the first African American to have ever graduated from U.S. college, and he was the headmaster of the Orleans County Grammar School during the mid-1800s. And in his teaching, he used, like many other headmasters and teachers of that era, small slate chalkboards to teach his students all of the course reading, writing, arithmetic. So his students ranged from 8 to 18 years old, roughly, and many of them lived in the dormitory that Mr. Twilight himself built in 1836 that we all know now as the Old Stone House Museum. So he certainly left a legacy of using slate in the classroom, but Samuel Reed Hall was the real the inventor maybe, or certainly standardized the use of the chalkboard in the early American classroom. He was a contemporary of Alexander Twilight and a resident of Brownington at the Samuel Reed Hall House in the the Old Stone House Museum property, which is the historic district as well. He revolutionized the early American classroom by standardizing the use of the blackboard as a teaching tool for both students and for teachers. So, I want to kind of turn also the message back to Alexander Twilight for a moment and take note that Alexander Twilight, as being one of the first African-American educators in the United States, holds specific and special relevance to today because of all of the tumultuous times that we're dealing with racial tension and also cultural upheaval. I think the story of Alexander Twilight holds a special place. We can learn from his legacy and his story. He was a very visionary person that believed that education was the great equalizer And so we can certainly learn from him today still. So that's just a brief history of the slate in the use of slate in the classroom. And as you all know, you have a slate in front of you ready to paint on. So please enjoy, but also realize that there's a pretty rich history with slate in early American classrooms. So back to you, Natalie.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Good.
I love what you said, Molly, that this is no substitute for being in person in a sense. It's really hard to do virtual learning events as a educator. I can attest as someone who has taught online and also done classes online, the human element is so important. And if anything I learned from online learning and teaching, it's really important to be together. So this is a nice way for us to access fun in a safe way. So I'm really excited that we can try to work this out. So let's first start by going over how this is going to kind of look during an online event when I can't see any of you and I'm just looking at myself, which is really strange. Today's image is in honor of school symbols. We've got 2 apples, and the back is a pencil with whatever you'd like to write. We're designing this image, these 2 images, to be extremely easy because we kind of feel like here we are at 7:14, just really starting. We still feel like we want to kind of make this really easy and stress-free for you guys. I've got my phone on a gooseneck, so I can move my phone up and down so you can hopefully watch what I'm doing. Lila is going to continue to be here with us tonight, so she will be seeing live time any comments that you're putting on the comment feed if you've got questions. And because you're in the mode you're in, you can always jump in and ask questions and I can try to address them. I will be taking breaks throughout my instruction to allow for time for questions. But if it's like a burning question or I'm going too fast, just let me know. Tonight we've got Harbison cheese, and I prepared a cheese platter just for the photo. And I'm gonna probably be eating it while we do this. And you either received a Brut or a Rosé Eden ice cider. And hopefully you're enjoying that with us tonight. I will be cracking mine open momentarily. You have your paints. You've got red, yellow, blue, purple, black, and white. And you've brought your own brushes. I will not be needing a large brush this evening. I will be working, so if you've got your brushes in front of you, you just need a medium and a small. Something that's about 1/2 inch and something that will allow you to add detail to your piece. So those are the only 2 brushes you'll be needing if you're gonna be working with the instruction I'm providing tonight. You've got napkins. These are my used ones that I'll actually be using, but I wanted to show you fresh ones too. You've got your small mixing plate. You can use the front and the back of this mixing plate. Usually what I do is first session I do the top, second session I do the bottom. We like to recycle, reuse, and I don't want to like waste materials. You've got your slate board. On the break, it's up to you. I don't know how accessible things are to you. You can masking tape the edges of your slate if you're nervous that paint will get on the edges of your slate, but I am not going to tonight, just because I don't think that most of you will be doing it. The instruction is going to just be step by step. We will be mixing our colors on the small plate, and you're just going to be pulling from your paint here on the table. Does anybody have a question at this point? It sounds like no. So I would say, let's crack open. I'm going to start with my rosé. Crack open your wine, pour yourself a glass, and Leela is going to run our first 2 trivia questions before we begin.
All right. So let me go ahead and screen share here.
Leela, do you want me to do these two while I'm still in like decent internet connection?
Sure. All right. Our first question, I will, and again, if you want to answer it in the chat, and then we can see who answered these first two questions correctly, and we can share out, what our prize is.
Cool. Oh, I'm so happy to be able to do this. Okay, so question 1 is trivia time. What were early chalkboards made from? Okay, so put your answers in the chat if you know what. Oh my gosh, look at all these people chatting away. Holy smokes. Okay.
Go, Anne, go.
Yeah, go girl. So basically, and what you get, well, maybe I won't tell people what they get yet. I'll keep that suspenseful.
Keep them in
Okay,
suspense, yes.
We'll keep that suspenseful. You do get something, and it's awesome.
All right, so it looks like we've got a number of answers in. Should we go to our first answer?
Okay, go to the first answer. This is exciting.
All right.
So, okay, so who was the first person who answered? Let's see if there's matches with the actual answer, which was, and I will quickly say, early chalkboards were made from thin pieces of slate bordered with scrap pieces of wood. So what you have in front of you is kind of a refined modern version of this, certainly, but it's a fairly decent prototype. So let's see, Anne says slate, and she's correct. Yeah. And that is correct. It was literally made from just really thin sheets of slate. You're correct. And I'm not going to tell you what you get yet because we will save that for the end when we have a number of winners. Does that sound fair to everybody?
All right. Yeah. And it looks like we had a number of right answers there.
Could you tell me where you're supposed to post your answer?
Yes,
sure.
In the chat. Yeah. Which it looks like you have. It looks like we've got Anne, Jennifer, Nancy, Jane, and Emily all answered slate.
Yeah, it was close. The thing with Zoom is that it comes in time, so we can actually see. Anne was at 7:18:05 and Jennifer was 7:18:06. So nice job.
All right, so we'll go on to our next question here.
Yep. Question 2. Okay. In what year was the chalkboard introduced to the classroom? Oh, that's a good question. That's a tough question. See if you can figure it out. Whoa, nice.
All right.
Okay, we got the answers.
Take a chance.
There's some really great guesses here, I have to say. Wow. Yep. Really good guesses. We've got people, Jennifer, Nancy, Emily, Megan, Jane, and Anne all clocking in guesses.
All right.
Okay. Yep. Ready for the answer. Okay. Da-da-da. 1814. Samuel Reed Hall was reportedly the first chalkboard in the classroom. Yeah. So let's see who was close. It looks like Anne was probably closest with 1813. Yeah. Which year?
Yep. And then Megan with 1800s or 1800.
1800. Yeah. So I think Leela, if you want to mark both Anne and Megan for that one, just because I in my personal opinion, anybody within a 15-year span is dead on. Nice job.
Excellent. All right, and I will stop sharing. Those were our first two questions there. We'll go back to Natalie, who's there we go.
All right. I think are we only women tonight?
Yes.
So I can say, ladies, let's start our engines. Are you ready? So I'm going to break it down to the most basic denominator. I have not had a manicure in years, and I'm also a farmer, so this is not going to be the most beautiful tutorial. Let's open our paint. Maybe you're already ready and waiting, but I want to do everything with you guys. So we're opening our paint. We're making sure that everything is in a position that's easy to reach, where the paint is not going to be dripping onto the slate. And I used my paint earlier for the prototype, so my paint is not pristine like yours will be. I want to move, I'm a left-handed person, so I'm going to move my mixing tray to the left because I don't want to be reaching across my workspace. I've got my brushes. I'm going to make sure my wine is far away from my rinse water for obvious reasons. Ha ha ha. And I've got my blotting towels here. Is everybody ready? If you're not, I think it's better just to be like, meh, and let me know if you're not. Give me like an animal noise or some sort of indication you're not ready. Everybody good? Okay.
It looks like everyone's good in the chat.
Yay! Okay, I'm wondering if, let me see, if there's a way to do that so you guys can actually see what we're doing. We're gonna start out with our green apple, which is on the left side of your canvas or your slate board. I'm gonna use my medium brush, the one that I had explained to you guys is about a 1/2 inch. I'm going to mix the color green. Do you guys know how to mix the color green?
Blue and yellow.
I think everybody does. Yes. So I want to explain something about pigments. You'll notice with my paint pots that I used this morning, my yellow is almost empty and my blue is full. Yellow is a very weak pigment. You need a lot more yellow to get where you want to go. So what I like to do to conserve paint, because I need to actually, is I like to add my yellow to my small plate first. You're not going to need much. And I'm just going to literally touch the blue. Not much blue, just a little. And I want to see what happens. I want to go slow with my mixing because you guys have a limited amount of paint and I want to make sure you've got what you need. So by mixing that tiny little touch of blue with that yellow that I put on, I've got a nice lime green. What I'd like to do is mix a few different colors. Does anybody need more time mixing that initial color? Okay. So I never want to obliterate my entire color. This is my base color. I'm now going to dip my medium brush into that yellow again. And on a side of my green, I'm going to mix a small puddle of brighter yellow. And on the side of that brighter yellow I've mixed, I'm dipping my medium into white and I'm going to mix a small amount of light green. So I now have 3 hues of green based off of that initial green that I made. I'm going to give you guys like 30 more seconds. All right. So I'm going to, rinsing your brush is going to be something that you can do with whatever comfort level you need. And I like to make sure that my brush is very dry. Like when I blot my brush on my towel, I like to see that there's not a lot of color coming off of it. That lets me know that my brush is clean. Are we ready to start with our first apple?
Yep.
All right, let's do it. So decide, guys, you guys paid for this event and you can do whatever you want tonight. And this is really about having fun. So don't worry if you screw up. What's great about the black slate, and I want to show you actually up close, is if you make a mistake, you can outline things with black and fix things. Because black is going to help you refine. I actually spilled black paint on my thing. So there, you can see with the light hitting it, there are places you can't really notice it. But if you really look, there are places where you can use black to refine, like my O smeared. You guys see that? So if you screw up at all, don't worry, because your black paint is going to help you refine your image.
We're just doing apples.
Okay.
Questions? All right. So I'm going to take that initial green paint, that first darker green paint that I mixed. I'm going to put it on my medium brush.
Still have enough.
Yeah, that happens. Whatever you've got there, use it, and then we can mix more. It's okay. And what I'm going to do is, as you can see in my example, my green apple's a bit smaller and my red apple's a bit bigger. It's totally up to you how you want to make the shape, but apples are not just a circle. I usually kind of make it seem like a metamorphosed heart. So I start on the left and I make kind of like a heart shape, but I kind of flatten it a bit. And then on the right, it's kind of like another heart shape, but I usually make it a little oblong. And honestly, guys, you've been apple picking, I'm sure. Apples come in a lot of different shapes, so don't worry about the shape as much.
Oh yeah, I caught one.
Got it? Half of your apple is going to be that color green. So I'm dividing my apple in half, and I'm going to paint that half with that darker green. And I'm kind of following the contour. It's really cool. I can hear all your paintbrushes moving around. Don't forget that you've got your Eden Ice cider in front of you. I want to invite you to take a sip. Does anybody need more time? So now we've got our lighter color, the medium color that we've mixed. I'm going to mix that towards the bottom quarter of my right side of my apple. It's not going to be a significant difference, but I've got that here. The lighter color we mix is going to go up here. So now, and if you've got too much paint on your brush like I do, I'm just going to kind of wipe some of that paint off of my brush, and I'm going to move it so my apple kind of looks very disjointed like this.
No.
So you've got your medium, your normal color, the local color that we mixed. You've got your yellow tone, and then you've got your tint, which is where we mix the white. At this point, I'm going to wipe off my brush, and I'm going to actually allow myself a little bit of time to just follow my brush around the edges of what I've just done. Contour is the form of an object, the three-dimensional form of an object. So I like to make my brush strokes follow the contour that I imagine my apple would be. And I'm allowing the paint to kind of interact with itself. Like, it's going to like mean that I've come up with something that's irregular, and I don't clearly see what regions I have anymore. I've got something a little less regular. That's good. We want that. How are we doing, everybody? We doing okay? This is that moment in my paint and sips that I would be like, everyone's doing so great, but I can't tell. So I'm just going to eat a piece of cheese while I'm waiting.
Cheese, celery.
Mmm. And I'll actually give you a shot of my cheese at this point. Mmm. Okay. At this point, I think what I'd like to do is rinse our brush. Whenever you're ready. Don't forget, give me that animal noise if you are feeling we are moving too fast. Acrylic brushes are made with synthetic fibers. Watercolor brushes are often made with natural fibers. These brushes can take some abuse. So I usually ram my brush right into the water, right into that. Oh yeah. And I want to make sure that when I blot my brush, I'm not seeing anything other than the dirty watercolor. And I'm assured that there is nothing on my brush. Okay, we are going to mix our next color. Are you ready? All right, let's do it. So this is going to be the red apple. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take, again, I'll remind you, yellow is very weak. I'm going to start my red apple without mixing colors, and I'm going to dip directly into my red paint, my medium brush, and I'm going to make a similar shape to what I did for the green. It's the same, but you may want to vary the size just to create a little interest in your piece. So my red apple might be, you know what, because I made my green apple a little fatter in this one than my example, I'm going to make my red apple in this one look like a red delicious. So my sides will be a little straighter. My bottom will be a little like more wiggled. My red is not showing up very good, huh? And then I'm going to do my other side. Remember that heart shape. And I'm going to give myself kind of a wonky outline for a non-GMO red delicious apple. Here we go. So now it's going to be very similar to what we just did. And I want to tell you like a little tip. So a lot of times when people paint, they take their board, this is the surface, so I'm trying to make it look parallel to you, and they paint with their brush perpendicular to the board. But if you want your paintbrush to release more paint, make your brush as parallel to the surface of what you're doing as possible, and more paint will be released from your brush. So if I'm hitting my paint surface perpendicularly, I will not get a thick application of paint. But if I hit my brush parallel to the surface, I will get a much thicker application of paint. Kind of like if you paint your nails. You see the difference? Than if I did that. So if you want to get a nice thick application of paint, we're going to paint just like we did with the green. Half of that apple is going to be our local color, which is our red. And I'm making sure that my brush is as parallel to the paint surface as I can make it. So I have a nice thick application of color. Be generous with the red. It's okay. We've got plenty of it. I'm rinsing my brush, but I'm going to give you guys a couple seconds to catch up. Speaking of ketchup, we have a almost 3-year-old in the house. And I just realized the other day that we went through almost 40 ounces of ketchup in 1 month. And I'm kind of freaked out. Okay, so now here's where we mix our color. Let's take that medium brush and move some red paint over to our small plate. We're now going to take a very, what do we got? Good luck, Emily. What's that? Oh my God, what's happening?
She's chasing cows at the moment.
Oh no! Did they get on the fence?
Somebody
I've done
got
it many
loose,
times.
maybe.
Oh my God, Emily, we're with you, girl. I used to milk a herd of 60, and we had a barn dog that was untrained, and she would chase them, and they would go right through the electric fence. Oh yeah. Now the dog is senile because she's old, and I'm not going to say it. I'm not enjoying her senility. Okay. I've dipped my medium brush into yellow, And I'm going to do the same thing I did with the green is I'm not going to steal this whole pull of red. I'm going to pull a little tiny bit and make myself a nice coral color. I'm also chewing on a piece of salami. Sorry. So I've got my local color, which is my original color, my red. And now I've got this beautiful salmon color. I'm going to take the salmon color a bit further by mixing even more yellow. Only into a part of it because I don't want to obliterate all the work I've done. And I want to get to my result faster. So now I've got my 3 tones. And y'all know what to do now, right? So you can paint your lighter color at the top since that's what's fresh on your brush. And it's okay if it blends with the red that's already there, that's fine. And I'm gonna swipe up that medium color and I'm gonna cover that bottom quarter of my apple. So I've got something that's looking a little disjointed at the moment. And then like with the green, I'm rinsing off my brush, I'm drying off my brush, and I'm gonna take that dry, clean brush and I'm gonna like move my brush around this apple in such a way that I start getting some blending. And I'm going to think of the contour of the apple as I work across my apple. I may, because I'm noticing at least with mine at this moment, want to dip directly into the yellow while my paint is wet and add a little more yellow to the top of my right top and allow that to kind of naturally blend as I work.
My paint doesn't seem to be sticking to the slate.
It may be the angle of your brush. And also maybe because you have got too much water on your brush. The key here is that your brush is always very dry, like you can go like this and there's not a lot of water on your fingers. Okay?
Okay.
And the key is that your angle is almost parallel to the surface of your workspace. Instead of hitting it like this, you're hitting it like this. And as you can see in my example, there are plenty of places where I was very thick with the paint, but there are plenty of places where that black slate kind of does show through. And it also helps to add depth to the piece anyways. So I allowed that to happen. And I really wish, this is that moment when I really wish I could jump into your living room. I know it sounds super creepy. But this is that moment I'd love to come see what's going on there so I could help you. But I assume that it's one of the 2 factors. Now, let's say it's not either of the 2. What you can do is move on and go back into that area later with more paint after it dries, and it'll just be an extra layer on top.
It's actually better. I think it was too wet.
Okay. Yes, and that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up because your brush being very dry is key to painting on slate. I'm moving my brush right now in my hand and I have no moisture on my hand. So making sure that your brush is always nice and clean, but then you're really using your napkin or your sleeve or your tablecloth to make sure your brush is perfectly dry is going to be key. So how are we doing on the apples? Doing okay? Does anybody need more time on finishing those apples? Okay, so the last step is taking your small brush. I'm gonna get it wet just because my small brush looks like Beaker from the Muppets right now. And I'm gonna kind of shape my small brush so it's pointed. I'm gonna dip my small brush directly into my white paint. And because my lighter highlights are here, I'm gonna give myself highlights on my apple. by making 2 dashes on each apple in that lighter section with my small brush. Don't worry, guys, or ladies, if your dashes are weird or whatever. It just, where light reflects off of an apple is honestly like never going to be perfect because apples are very different in their shapes. So now we're going to mix the color brown. Does anybody here know how to do that with what we've got in front of us?
Yep.
So brown is kind of a fun color to mix. You use your primaries, your red, your yellow, and your blue. So I'm going to take a little bit of red. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow, that weak, wimpy yellow, and a touch of blue. And I'm going to mix them all together. And the hope is you're going to come up with some gross looking, wonky color. And it's going to mimic the color brown. I used about equal parts each. You don't need much of it. And once you've got that, you're going to give yourself a very simple stem with your small brush. And then you're going to rinse your brush off. So my brush is dry and it's clean. We're going to mix one more color and we're almost done with our apples. Any animal noises out there? We need more time? Okay.
All quiet on the chat.
All Quiet on the Western Front. I will never forget that book in 3rd grade. Okay. So we're going to mix our color green again, but we're going to start with our small brush. We're going to start with yellow. We don't need much. This is a very small amount of paint we're mixing. You can see, very small amount. Start with yellow. But I want to warn you, you don't need a lot of blue. I'm literally putting a very tiny amount of blue on my brush and I'm mixing it in with that yellow and you can see, wow, that happened fast. And here's a trick. Green is actually one of the hardest colors to mix. Green and purple. Purple is a color you don't find very often in nature. Obviously, there's certain flowers that are purple. But purple is a really rare color. It's a very valuable color in nature. Green is another kind of color that we see everywhere. But honestly, there's such a variety of green that it can be a difficult color to mix. And most of the famous artists would buy tubes of green instead of mix their green. We're mixing it because we're badass. So we've got our green. I'm like, where is it? There it is. I'm going to touch my brush very, very minimally into the red. Not much, okay? When you mix a complementary color together, it neutralizes the color so it's not so saturated, and it gives us a more realistic leaf color. So now my green has taken on a more neutral tone. And that is what I'm going to use to create my leaf, which is kind of an almond shape. I'm generalizing the shape significantly into something that's kind of like an almond or an eyeball. And then I'm going to fill it in.
Moo.
We're going to outline these things, so don't worry if it's like weird or you like made it look like a booger or something. It's fine. Decide, like, do I want my other leaf on this side? Do I want it to be symmetrical? What do I want to do? This is where your artistic license kind of comes in. This apple's a little bigger, so I might even make my leaf a little bigger.
Natalie, I think you got a cow noise going on, an animal noise.
Oh God, okay. Was that a moo? Thank you. And that's not the person who's chasing cattle right now, right?
I think she's still out chasing them.
Oh God, I wish I could help. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you a close-up of where I'm at. We're actually doing really well, you guys. Everything's going good. If you're starting to feel like you have a death grip on your paintbrush or that weird vein on your forehead is starting to appear, this is the time to take a deep breath. Be a little mindful of your clenched muscles and take a drink of that rosé or that brut. And if it's already gone, go to the kitchen and get another bottle. You're home. You're not driving anywhere. Are we ready, ladies, to move on?
Yep.
Animal noises. The barn is quiet. Speaking of barns, I would like to have a moment of silence for the barn that was devastated. Actually, was it in Brownington? Was
Yeah,
it the,
it was
the Moulton farm?
Yep.
I heard about that this morning and I cried. It is one of the most devastating things that can happen to any farmer.
Yep. Pretty tragic.
Mm-hmm. My husband grew up on farms and he told me he was involved in actually 2 different barn fires at 2 different farms that he worked at. It's not as uncommon as you want to believe. And with storing hay in a barn, as the old-fashioned barns allow, it's very actually hard to get insurance for those barns because of the risk of fire, especially when you've got all the electric equipment involved. And what has happened to them is so devastating. So I hope at some point as a community we can come together and help them. I can't even imagine what they're experiencing right now.
I will show my painting.
Oh my goodness. So the last step, ladies, is outlining with black. And I'm going to use my small brush. It's clean, it's dry. I'm dipping into the black. And I'm going to come around and I'm going to start on the right. I'm going into the apple just a little bit. And I'm going to like go into the apple just a little bit. And then I'm going to give myself a nice outline and I'm kind of refining the outside edge of my apple. I'm reaffirming what I want it to do. I'm going to dip back into the black because I've now run out. I'm going to now come up to the top. And I'm going to come along the outside edge. And I'm allowing myself to just kind of follow the outside edge of my apple. But it helps me kind of reaffirm what I want that edge to look like. I'm going to do the same with the leaf and the stem. And I'm also going to do the same thing with the red apple after I'm done with my green apple. So you end up with something that's outlined with black. It doesn't really show up when you look at it, but it does reaffirm the shape of what you're doing. I'm now going to move over to my red apple. I'll give you guys some time, no hurry. And I'm going to do the outside of my red apple as well, exactly the same way I just did my green. Yeah. So are some of you guys painting together? Or are you all individually logged on?
I'm alone
With an audience.
with an audience.
Oh, who's your audience?
Oh, my sister and my daughter.
Fun. Hi, guys.
Yep.
Hopefully you have more than one little bottle of rosé there in front of you.
We did have to supplement.
Well, you know, we're survivors in the Northeast.
You got it.
So I've got my red, I've got my green, and I'm going to give you guys like a minute. Because I know that right now some of you are like hyperventilating. And then others are looking for the cheese.
Mhm.
I'm going to refill my glass. My husband's got the toddler tonight. I had to actually come to a different location Because there's no way I would have undivided time here for you.
Natalie, did you just snort?
I did. I do it often. I don't even realize I do it.
I love it.
And that wasn't the animal noise, meaning that I needed to slow down. That's just me. How we doing, ladies? Are we okay? Anybody need more time? So what I'd like to do at this point, as you finish up, is invite you to rinse and dry your brushes. Because we're about to enter in to trivia.
We'll see how Molly's doing.
Okay, I'm still here.
All
Yep.
right. I will go ahead and as people are rinsing and drying their brushes off, I will share my screen and bring up that next. Whoops. Uh-oh, hold on.
So the reason it's so quiet behind me is because I'm in my car. I'm not at my house where my 3 daughters would be hooping and hollering at this time of night too. So I hear you, Natalie. All right. Next to, and before we start, I just want to give a quick shout out and thank you to Eden Ice Cider for their contribution of beautiful hard ciders, and also Jasper Hill Cheese, which donated the cheese that you are enjoying hopefully tonight as well. So thanks to those folks for their donations. Okay, next on the trivia, are we ready with
Go,
our
Nancy, go.
words? Okay, here we go. Question number 3. What did students use to write on their slates before the advent of
Sorry.
chalk? Oh no! Okay, don't look at the screen. I already closed it. Okay. What did students use to write on their slates before the advent of chalk? You saw the screen that
Sorry.
actually, yeah.
I was trying to get the chat back up so I could see.
Okay, I can look at the chat. Let's see if anybody's got this.
So what did they use to write on their slates before chalk?
Yeah. Hopefully everybody was busy doing their black outlining.
Oh, I like
Oh,
it.
knuckles. I like that. I like that a lot. Not quite it, but not quite the answer we're looking for. It's a little bit of an interesting answer, and I didn't know it myself until I looked it up, and we actually did an online exhibit about from blackboard to chalk, from chalkboard to whiteboard, which was a technology in the 19th century online exhibit. And so I learned this during putting that together. So kind of interesting. Knuckles is not the answer. So if anybody does have, Jennifer, I love it. Oh, soap is a great idea. That's also not it. This is a bit of a hidden answer. Anybody have any other answer that they think? So prior to chalk, which is the most, of course, common, and actually my kids, well, maybe this will give you a clue. Oh, yeah. So I think it looks like Kim's got it for the most part, I would say. Slate pencils is for the most part right. Leela, would you mind switching the screen and I'll read the answer? Yeah, so students and teachers used slate pencils, small pieces of rock sharpened to a pencil point, and any kid, experimenting with primitive tools kind of figures that out. Like my girls love to take certain kinds of rocks and scrape it on our slate walkways and so forth to see what marks it up, and there are certain ones that do give it a mark, so that's what they used, and they just had it a little bit more refined and sharpened it to a little bit of a point. So Kim Lontine, congratulations. You win this question. Okay, next question. Here we go. Sorry, it's Eden iced, Natalie. Sorry. Okay, question number 4. What are 2 examples of something a student might practice writing on their slates? All you have to give me is 2. Probably a lot pop into your mind, but anybody who comes in first, anybody have 2 examples of curricular pieces? Oh, gotcha. Okay, Nancy.
Letters
Got
and-
letters and numbers. That's correct. And you're correct as well, of course. Numbers and letters. Yeah, the 3 R's. Yep. Oh, okay. Let's see. Arithmetic and English. Yep. Letters and verse. Good. All those answers are correct. So, Leila, if you wouldn't mind going through there and seeing if there's anyone who hasn't won one yet, that would be great. And I'll give you some other examples specifically too that Alexander Twilight used his curriculum. He was really kind of this amazing progressive educator that did all kinds of science and biology and astronomy curriculum too. So there were a lot that his students specifically, French, foreign language. So there were a lot specifically that his students may have practiced.
Sorry. I didn't hear you.
No, that's all right. So examples might have been spelling, mathematics, alphabets, foreign language, grammar, scientific classifications. So before it was the Orleans County, before it was the Old Stone House Museum and the Orleans County Historical Society, it was the Orleans County Natural and Civil History Society. So natural history was a big part of the history of the Old Stone House Museum, interestingly enough. So scientific classifications, taxidermy, all those things were big on the list of curricular materials also that Alexander would have taught. So yeah, thank you to everybody who answered. Good job.
All right, I will go ahead and stop sharing and we'll go back to Natalie.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about my Edwin Ice Cider.
Oh, I like that one.
My hands are giant and my screen protector's cracked, so I'm like, "Ugh." And then my spell correct kicks in. So what I'm thinking is on the surface of my drawing area is flat and clean. Does anybody here need a 5-minute break, or are we ready to move on? Would anybody here like a 5-minute break to use the bathroom, grab some ice?
Looks like everyone's okay. I don't see anything.
All right, captive audience, let's move. Okay. Okay, so, my small brush was hidden in the fold of my tablecloth. Okay, what I'm gonna do, because I've got a nice flat, clean work surface, this isn't completely dry, but I'm not worried because it's inset because of the frame. So I can flip it over, and as long as I'm not like moving it all around and I'm conscious, I can put it flat and I can lift it up and it's gonna be fine. So I'm going to lay it flat and I'm gonna now work on my next thing. If you're not feeling comfortable with that, you can always just kind of like hold it at an angle and work like this until it dries. Typically when we do paint events, we are taking a 15 to 20 minute break to eat food and go outside and use the bathroom. And I just kind of feel like we don't need to do that tonight. So if you want to just like lift this up while it dries, or if you feel comfortable laying it on a flat surface, go ahead. What I'm going to do is show you quickly the pencil. And I want to let you know, like, you're obviously like, this is the room number that I have at the high school because I'm a teacher. So I'm going to put this in my window. But you can put whatever you want here. On my example here, I'm making this for Molly. So I'm going to write something about either Old Stone House or Alexander Twilight's school or whatever. But you can put your address, you can put your bank account number, you can put whatever you want for your text. We'll screenshot it later and then just maybe check into your account maybe every 1 or 2 days. We're going to do the pencil. It's easy, but it's going to look very blobby at the beginning because I want to just let you know that this outline that kind of reaffirms what's going on is going to happen last. So at the beginning, it's going to be like a lot of blobby, weird stuff going on. But I want to remind you, we're going to be able to reaffirm that shape in the end with the black, and we're going to be able to give ourselves some details in the end. So the first part, it's going to maybe be a little discouraging because you're going to be like, it looks awful. but just be reminded that we are going to realign with that black. So I'm gonna put this here. We're gonna flip ourselves over. And what color are we gonna start with? Yellow again. So I have kind of decimated my small plate. I'm gonna use the other side for the session. I'm going to, I got a little red paint, but I'm not gonna cry. I'm going to just dip directly my medium brush into the yellow paint. My medium brush is now directly into, let me just position my camera better. Okay, so my yellow paint is here. I've got my medium brush. I'm going to make 2 parallel lines, but I want to give myself about 2 inches on either side of my board. So I'm going to make towards the bottom of my board a yellow line, but I want to leave about 1.5 inches to 2 inches on either side. And I'm going to make a parallel line to that. That's going to be the thickness, the body of my pencil. Pure yellow paint, easy peasy. On the right side of my pencil, I'm going to take my small brush. I'm dipping it into the yellow paint, and I'm going to make a zigzag line. Kind of looks like Bart Simpson. On the other side, I'm going to make a smiley face that goes out. In art, we call that an ellipse. Now I'm going to take my medium brush and I'm just going to fill it in with pure yellow. The whole thing. I'm, again, like I did with the apple, thinking of the contour of the brush. I could go and follow the round contour of the brush, but I want to go straight. I want to have my lines, excuse me for clearing my throat. I've been yelling at no one, just kidding, my kid. We have a new puppy and a toddler. It's wild times. All right. And I did a paint sip last night with social distancing. It was in person. And I'm noticing, and I have to be aware of this for teaching, when I have a mask on, I feel I have to project harder with my voice. So I'm just noticing that my voice is suffering from having to project with a mask on. It's okay if it's not perfectly filled in, but you're basically filling in your pencil. Technically, it's on the bottom. Anybody need more time? We're doing good. So, this is going to be pretty easy. What? We got an animal noise?
No, I'm sorry. I was just saying, looks like everyone's doing all right.
Yeah, I'm so proud of everybody. This is not an easy way to do an event, but it's kind of fun too. I actually think it's kind of also the positive is that you get that close up of what I'm doing. Whereas if we were in an event, I'd be standing further away from you. So this is kind of a cool positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my small brush now, guys. Well, actually, girls and people. We can do non-binary. People. I've got my small brush. I'm dipping into the white. And while the paint is wet, the top part of my pencil is going to be a little bit of white. I'm going to let it blend in with the paint that's already there, because this is the side of my pencil that's going to catch the light. If I feel that my paint is not blending well, I'm going to dip back into my white and get more. Often people don't use enough. They're very conservative with their paint and they're like, it's blending, but it's like disappearing and whatever. But really what you need is a lot of paint. So I'm just like, and notice I'm not doing it like I'm writing. This is another thing. People paint like they're drawing with like a pen. It's a lot of movement with your arm. So because we're doing something so horizontal, I'm not even moving my hand. It's all in my arm. So I'm moving my arm across my pencil and I'm allowing that. Ooh, the loons are starting to go and make their noises. Did you guys hear that? Oh, I love it. And my husband's gonna wonder why I'm not coming home. So I just kind of ran that small brush along the top. It doesn't matter how you really do it, how thick it is or whatever, but you should see a little bit of a highlight. And while that paint is still wet, I know that you guys are like still working. Leave that center, the pure yellow. And let's make the bottom. You're gonna take your small brush. I'm not going to put a lot of paint on my brush, guys, just a little bit. I'm gonna do red. And I'm gonna let that blend on the bottom. So it'll be a little bit orangey. That's my shadow. Oh, I messed up, but I'll clean that up with my green, with my black outline later. And I'm coming back in with my red and I'm allowing myself to give myself a little bit of shadow with the red. And in about maybe 30 seconds, we're gonna mix two colors. And we're gonna do the end of the pencil and the eraser. Then we're gonna mix a color and do the tip of the pencil. And then you guys will have time to customize what you wanna do for your text. While you guys finish that up, I'm actually gonna turn the porch lights on because it's starting to get a little dark outside.
That looks terrible.
That might be a little better now that the lights are on. Okay, are we ready to move? All right, I am going to use my small brush for the step. I'm mixing on my small plate. I'm gonna make pink. Pink is going to be a touch of red, a touch of white. Touch of red, touch of white, play around, get the color of an eraser that you prefer. I'm rinsing and drying off my brush. I'm gonna mix one more color and it's gonna be gray. So we need a touch of black and a touch of white. And you're probably gonna need more white than black on that because you want a light gray. Pink and red, or pink and gray. All right, are we ready, guys? Anybody need more time? So what I'm gonna do on the end of my brush, I'm gonna follow the same smiley face contour. And I'm gonna take that gray paint with my small brush and I'm going to make a silver line at the end. I'll show you the example. The silver line and then the pink. Making my silver, And then I'm going to rinse off my brush, make sure it's very dry. And I'm going to do the same exact thing with the pink. And I used too much water, so I got a little black in there, but whatever, I'm okay. I'm not going to freak. We're going to outline everything, guys. And remember, I said it's going to look a little weird and wonky. We're going to outline it with black later, so it's okay if it looks weird right now. We are going to mix a new color, so whenever you guys have rinsed and dried your brush, we'll move on. Anybody need more time?
Is there an apple on your side?
Two.
Okay, we're gonna mix orange, but a light orange. It's gonna be with your small brush, a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow. Actually, probably more yellow than anything. And a little bit of white. I want it to be lighter, so I'm making sure that it's light orange. And I'm going to do a triangle at the other end of my pencil that connects to my pencil. Once I'm done with that triangle, I'm going to fill it in with that color, maintaining that kind of V rough shape of the yellow. I want to kind of paint around that and make it as thick as you want.
I don't really think it's for me either, Charlotte. But I don't think it's really for me either. Yeah.
And the last step is making the tip of this pencil a little touch of black. That's your graphite end. So I'm dipping my small brush into the black and I'm giving myself a little black tip.
We should do breakfast on Sunday.
I'll come. What's your address?
We have bacon.
Okay, then we're all gonna come. Okay, the last step with the pencil, really, it's not the last step, but I'm gonna give it an outline with my small brush. If your paint is still very wet, just keep dipping it back into the black instead of like letting things get messy. And I'm retracing my black line. I'm making sure I have plenty of paint on my brush. And every time I feel like it's about to blend with a wet color, I'm just gonna get more paint on my brush. And I might even wipe my brush off and dip back in. I'm going to outline my eraser. And I'm going to outline my ferrule, which is the metal part. I'm going to outline my zigzags at the end of the brush. I may give myself a few suggestive lines on my pencil to kind of show the different planar kind of occurrences on the brush. If you're brave, you can add an oval And get yourself a number 2 in there. Like the famous number 2 pencil. Not required. I mean, the crazy brave people can be like writing Ticonderoga or something on their pencil, but I'm assuming we'll just stick with the number 2. So at this point, I'm going to invite you to take a look at that blank area on your slate and think of what you'd like to write for text. It's going to happen with your small brush that is clean and dry and your white paint. But again, this is your day. This is your night. You've paid for it. You're having fun. You can write whatever you want, and maybe you want it to be a rainbow statement. Who knows what you want to do? It can be any of the colors you've got, obviously. At this point, you will start taking the next maybe 5 to 10 minutes to fill out your lettering on the top of your slate. Anybody got a question? All right. So at your leisure, begin to write what you'd like to write on the top of your slate. How are we all doing? Everybody doing okay? I'm going to assume no news is good news here.
Yeah, we have nothing new on the chat. It looks like everyone's working hard.
All right. That's what we love. My apple got a little screwed up from turning it over, so I'm fixing it as you guys paint. Nothing we can't fix. Any questions, just pop in. I can try to troubleshoot from online. Whatever y'all need. You guys got a free thing of purple because apparently we didn't use it. So we're going to probably wrap this painting piece up in the next 5 minutes. And then we will end with some trivia and parting words. The online events go a lot faster because we're not chit-chatting as much. So take your time refining. If 5 minutes is not enough, please let us know.
So we do have a question. Emily just would love a
Yes?
she'd love a quick summary of the apple finishing touches because she had to step away when you were doing that. So if we could just see.
Emily, are you the one that was chasing the cows?
Yes.
How are they? Are the herd is good. So Emily, the finishing touches on the apple. We added a little bit of highlight to each apple with a small brush and white paint. We mixed brown by using the primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. And we made stems on the apple. We made leaves by mixing green with a touch of red to kind of offset that green. And then we outlined everything in black.
All right, great. She says, thank you. That was a big help.
You got it. And Emily, you tell me if that's not enough for you. I will help you. And I'm proud of you for chasing cows. I've been there a million times. Hopefully it wasn't a herd of 60. Do the whole thing. This is the time that I'd be like playing music and dancing around and like torturing people. And now it's like so silent that I'm just like, oh my God.
Very quiet.
But I wonder, I did wonder if I played music like I typically do, if there'd be too much feedback.
Oh, there might be, yeah.
You know, and so I like didn't bring my music, but I was like, oh.
Well, I think
It really helps if you've got music.
Well, you've done it just in the right timing too, because the lighting has completely changed. So now.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking is like, we're kind of getting to the end.
Perfect.
So, what I'm wondering, Leela, is like, should we figure out, I know we may not have the ability to do group photo because we have that video issue.
Yeah, that's
right. So
very.
here's what I'm wondering, folks, for those of you that are here, which is all of you that are listening, would you be willing to email us a photo of your work with you in your environment, with your glass of Eden cider, with your cheese, with your folks, with your cat? Would you be willing to send us a photo of you with your work? We could make a grid and we could do kind of like a virtual group photo once we receive your photos. Because honestly, guys, like it's really tough that we can't be together as a community. So if we can build a little bit of a virtual community through the photo, I think that would be kind of fun to see. So if you're willing to do that, Leela, would you give us the correct email for sending that info and maybe pop it into the chat so people can access that anytime they need?
Yeah, let me, and you can feel free to send it to the email that I've been sending everything out from, but I will
And
add
that's what, education?
Yep, I will add it in here too.
Okay.
Right here. I think that's a great idea if people are willing to share. And I'm so sorry that we weren't able to figure out the Zoom video.
I think, you know, after this event is over, probably over another bottle of ice cider another time, we will probably try to figure out what the heck happened there. But also, folks, as you finish, we would really love your feedback. This is an inaugural event for us. We've never done a virtual event With my paint and sip business, I've done 300 paint and sips. I've never done a virtual event. We want the good, the bad, the ugly. So in your email or even in the comments, if there's anything you can think of that we could have done differently or that you would have liked in your supplies or whatever, let us know anything you're thinking. And also, like, you know, critical feedback is often the most informative for teachers, even though it's not always the nicest to hear. We'd love to hear what you enjoyed about this as well. So we know to keep doing that, but we also want to know if there's anything that could have been better. Let us know, because we are thinking another positive of virtual events is it allows the old Stonehouse to host events in the winter when they're not typically open. And so if a virtual event like this is something you'd be interested in doing by your fireplace on a cold winter night where you don't have to drive anywhere and you can have your glass of brandy next to you and we can paint something else historical, we can start kind of brainstorming on our end once we know how to refine this event.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Natalie. I think that's a great idea for future events. And also thank you so much for all the great tactics, advice, tricks, everything that you showed us tonight.
That's my job, girl, my job.
So if we're ready, I can bring up the screen and do
Let's do it.
Last two
Anybody
questions.
need more time?
I don't know.
That was me. All right, so ladies, let me bring the camera back to me just to end, and then we'll do our last trivia question. And look, it's dark at the lake, so we're ending at a good time. But I want to thank you for coming. I know this is a weird conglomerate event, and we really appreciate you coming. And thank you for helping us honor Alexander Twilight. And I hope that I see these slate boards around the community and wherever you end up putting them. Back to you, Leela.
Great. Well, I will go ahead and share my screen. I know Molly was able to join us, but I'm not sure if she'll be able to come on. So what I'll do is bring up our last two questions, and let me go ahead and present. See if it'll do that. And sometimes when it does this, it doesn't let me see the answers, but what I'll do is I'll go for, here we go, there we go. So our next, or number 5 out of 6 trivia questions are, why were chalkboards such an important invention in early classrooms? So what are your thoughts on why those chalkboards would be such an important invention? And think about back to that time. No TVs, no, yes, awesome. Teach multiple children at one time. Communicating answers to quizzes and tests, yes, absolutely. Easy to use, yep, they definitely prove that. Any other ideas? All right. Let's see, so we'll move on to our answer, which is sort of a little bit of all of those, but also I thought this was really interesting. So chalkboard and slates made the visualization and practice of topics possible without the constant need of paper, which in the 1800s was more difficult to mass produce. So I thought it was interesting that it's more related to paper, but it is exactly teaching more children at once, easy to use, and great way of communicating all kinds of information. And then reusable material, absolutely, very, very true. All right, so I think you guys, I'm gonna write down all that because everybody seems to have gotten a little, let's see, Emily was, okay. So let me go to our final and last trivia question here.
Woo, 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 woo.
What did the chalkboard evolve into in the 20th century? What is now in those classrooms? Excellent. All right. Jane said whiteboards. Yes, absolutely.
Snapchat.
Snapchat, yes. Computers, yes, that's another thing. Definitely whiteboard, yes, absolutely. Yeah, so looks like we got a couple answers here, and they are all correct. And yes, so it's really whiteboards, smart boards, if anyone has ever used one of those, iPads, tablets, etc. So there's all of those kind of electronic things, or even whiteboards where you can use many different colors versus just having the chalk. So excellent. So those were our questions. I'm going to stop sharing here for a second and just let folks know I went through a tally. And so for first question, we had Anne. Second question, we had Anne, but with a close second with Megan. Third question was Kim. Fourth question was Nancy. Fifth question was Emily. And then sixth question was Jane. And those were the folks that answered sort of the first as we asked those questions. And I believe Molly's still on here, but I'll go ahead and I believe what we decided was that we would love to give each one of you who were a winner in our questions tonight a free tour at the Old Stone House Museum. So we will email with you and let you know, certainly that you can do that and when you can schedule at your own convenience with us for that. But we wanted to let everyone know, thank you so much for participating with us. This is really an excellent program. Natalie, thank you so much for all.
We had so much fun. This was awesome. I'd love to do this again.
And thanks for working with us and trying something new for yourself that you've
So
done
fun.
so many times, but online.
I don't think I could have done it without you though.
Well, thanks. We're still, working out some of the kinks for next time, definitely.
Yeah.
I really appreciate everyone working with us and, picking up the kits, and maybe we can figure out a way of getting kits to people more easily in the future. But thank you so much. And you guys did an awesome job.
We want to see those photos. I want to see what you did. It's killing me that I can't see what you did.
I'm very sorry.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right. So thank you so much, and have a great night. And if you want to need anything from me, feel free to email me. Great. And oh, good, Emily, your cows are safe. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.